Now I'm going to import a recipe from Desktop Insight. So let's switch over there. And I have a recipe open right now. So from the utility menu, I'll choose XML. And this is the XML representation of the data in the current recipe. I'm in Windows. I'll press Control A to select it all and Control C to copy it. Now we'll switch back to Insight Live and close all recipes, and we'll add a new one. And then down here where it says XML text import and export, I'll click Show. Now I have the XML representation of the current empty glaze that I've just created. I'll select it all, and I'll press Control V to paste in the XML from Insight. Now notice down below here I can also interpret this box as text if I had just a text recipe with the name, the materials, and the amounts. And now I'll click the Confirm checkbox, and then I'll click Interpret XML. And here we have the recipe. Now notice on this line with the 3124 Insight desktop version also supports the idea of individual materials in a recipe having a name and a database lookup to find the chemistry. And Insight Live displays the lookup if it is different from the material name. Now we've got two recipes here. Let's link this one that I've just created to the first one. And to do that, click checkbox and click link. And here you can see the link. Now if I click that, I'll go to the other recipe. Here we are. And I have them side by side. Now I'm going to import all of my Insight data. And I've assembled a number of import files in this folder. And notice that I can see the 3-letter file extension name on each of them. In order to see that, you need to have your copy of Windows configured to show it. And it's very important to be able to see that, to be able to tell what kind of a file you have. This particular file is the Insight data file. Now I have an SQLite browser program installed on my computer. SQLite is an international database standard, and it's probably the database you have on your cell phone. And Insight maintains its data in an SQLite database. So I've pressed open. I'll go to the folder. There it is. I'll click open. Here you can see all of the tables and indexes that are being used. You'll click on Browse Data, Recipes, and go over a few columns. And here is the name of each of the recipes. I can edit this data if I want. Of course, I have to be careful not to change the structure. So we'll close that. So let's go back to Insight Live. I'll close all my recipes. And then I'm going to click Import. And I'll choose an Insight recipe database file. Down here I can assign up to 3 type codes to each incoming recipe. Of course I would have to create those type codes first over here. And a batch number is going to be assigned to this. It's going to be 1. I could override it if I wanted. I could prepend something to the name of each recipe here. And I'm going to choose the file now. There it is. And then I'll click Upload. I've got a message. I've got 47 that have been added. I'll zoom out. And you can see there's a log here telling me the progress. Again, it's telling me there's a duplicate recipe name that I should check. And over here we can see also that the number of recipes has changed. I now have 49 in total. Now if I search for that batch number 1 that I just brought in, I'm just seeing 47 recipes that are in that batch. And if we click on one of those, let's close all the windows. Click on one of these recipes. Now we can see the recipe that's been brought in, but notice it's batch number 1, and notice it has a picture-based name. You know, I can actually search for that if I want. If I have a file that has a name, I can put the name in here. I can choose picture base and then search it to find the recipe that that picture file belongs to. But also, since Insight uses this picture naming standard, and the picture names are in each of these recipes, then I can use the bulk uploading page in Insight Live to upload all of my pictures, and they will pair properly with the recipes that are in there. Now I'm going to import a batch of GlazChem recipes. But before doing that, notice from the last batch, this recipe, there's a character here that's not being displayed properly, and that's an accented character, international one. So we'll learn how to deal with those in a minute when we're importing. Anyway, here's the folder. Files, import files again, and this is the one I want, GlazeChem recipes.txt. The ClayArt ones are already in the system as reference recipes. And GlazeChem files can have either a GLZ or a TXT extension. Let's just open my text editor here and drop this in there and have a look inside. As you can see, it's text once again, and you can see that it's organized, how it's organized. Okay, so we'll go back to Insight Live. We'll close all the windows. Choose Import. We want a GlazeChem recipe file, and we'll choose the file. It's right here. Open and import. It says we brought in 109, so I'll close the import window and we can look at the log, and it's complaining that there's a bunch of type codes that it hasn't encountered. In this case, it's the label of the type code that's being searched for, and so if I want to put these type codes in ahead of time, I would have to choose a 3-letter abbreviation for each one and make sure that the label matches what I see here. So I'll close this, and let's search for batch number 3. It's imported as those recipes, and have a look inside of one of these. As you can notice, there's the batch, and notice that a type code has been attached, RGC for an imported GlazeChem file. Okay, now let's go and get a GlazChem limit file. So I'll close all. We'll go back to that folder for a moment. And we're going to get is this one. So I'll put my editor here, and we'll drop this on here. And there you can see again, it's just text, one recipe after another. Okay, let's go back to Insight Live. Bring up the import window. This time we want a GlazeChem limits file. Put it on the bottom, choose it. It's right here. I'll double click it. And then it's going to come in as batch 4. I'll click upload. And we brought in 127. So let's check the log. Now we have some duplicate names that will have to be dealt with. Okay, now let's search for this batch, batch number 4. Here are all the ones. I can click on one. Now notice here the range there's a range column, and there's nothing in the amount column. So let's close this, excuse me, the log, and have a look inside here once again. I'll open this recipe, and then I'll edit. So now you can see that the range column has been utilized to put the amount, and this is what's done with target or limit formulas. Now let's import a GlazeMaster recipe database. So we'll go back to my folder. It's here. Now this was exported from within GlazeMaster as an XML file. Let's take a look at that in my editor. As you can see, it's normal text. Now let's go back to Insight Live. Specify GlazeMaster. Choose the file. And upload. Now a GlazeMaster XML file has a lot of redundant information, so it does take more time. Here we are, 76. Now let's take a look at the log. As before, I have some type codes that were encountered that were not defined in the system. I could define these type codes. I would have to make sure that the label of the type code matches what I see here. Let's search that batch that we just brought in. And click on one of the recipes, and there it is from GlazeMaster. Notice that it has a type code that was imported from GlazeMaster. Now we're going to import a matrix file. And we have the file right here. I'll drop it in my editor. Here's we have a problem. This is obviously not a text file. It's a proprietary format. And it took quite a bit of hacking for us to figure out how to parse this, but we have. So we'll go back to Insight Live, and I'll choose Close All, and we'll import. Choose Matrix, and I'll choose the file, and upload. We brought in 11 into batch number 6. So I'll close the importer and the log, and we'll search for batch number 6. Here's we have a problem in this letter right here. An international accented character and has not been translated correctly. Now Insight Live uses the UTF-8 character set, and that can represent any international character. However, older file formats and older software use other character sets. And so Insight Live can do the conversion. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this batch. Now we're already at batch number 6, we're searching it, so all I need to do is click Confirm, delete batch, and delete. And it's gone. So now we just need to go and import again. I'll choose Matrix. This time I'm going to click on the Convert to UTF-8 box. And that is explained in more detail down at the bottom here. And we'll choose the file and upload it. We have it. Let's search for that batch again. Close these windows, and we'll click on the first one, and it appears it has done a conversion. Now we're going to import a HyperGlaze file. So let's go over and take a look at it. And notice it says it has a CSV file extension. That means comma separated values. And that gives it the Excel logo. So if I double click on that, it should open in Excel. It does. So Excel is smart enough to separate all the columns using the commas as the delimiter, and we have in the first column the name of the recipe, and then in all these other columns are the individual ingredients and the amounts. Obviously a format like this does not have any notes for each recipe. So let's go back to Insight Live, and we'll choose Import. We'll choose HyperGlaze CSV Recipe Worksheet, and I'll uncheck this Convert to UTF-8. We'll choose the file and upload. Okay, I'll close the importer, and we have a log here. It says we got 46 recipes, and it says the type code of RWS was assigned to each of these recipes. So why don't we just search for that type code, RWS. I'll take this 6 out of the batch blank, and then we'll go search. So these are the recipes that we just imported. And let's click on one of them. Okay, so that's done, and I'll close the log. Now I'm going to import an Insight XML recipe database file. So in the import dialog, I'll choose that here. And this is an option that has been added since the other parts of this video were done. Now, we already imported one XML recipe from Desktop Insight using a copy and paste method. But in addition to being able to give us the XML of a recipe for copying, Insight has for many years saved and backed up individual recipe files using this same XML format. But that format was designed from the beginning to be able to hold more than one recipe. If you're a programmer, you'll appreciate the flexibility of this format. If not, bear with me. The entire file is bracketed by these tags. A recipes tag at the beginning, and at the very end another one. And within the file, the individual recipes are bracketed by a recipe singular tag. And notice these two blocks of recipe lines, the first one and the second one. They are different. We'll talk about that in a minute. Here's the notes and the pictures. This file format can embody all of the data in a recipe except for the pictures. They are external. Their notes and their titles are stored here, but the actual file is referred to here. Okay, so let's go back to Insight Live, and as before, I could choose a type code to assign to each incoming recipe. I could prepend a word onto the name of the recipe. This is something new since the other import examples. I can also type a note to be saved with each recipe. So I'm going to type that here. This comes from a web page. And then we'll choose the file. And I'll click Upload. Now those two different syntaxes for the recipe lines are interesting because that's one of the flexibilities of XML. If a program doesn't understand a particular part of an XML file, it can simply ignore it. And that's what's going to happen here. Now, Insight Live prefers one of those syntaxes, and that's the one it'll use, and it'll ignore the others. Now this file contains 10,000 lines. And it was written, a programmer wrote a program to convert a database that was on a web page into this XML recipe database format that Insight is now importing. And so this format is universal. So if you have recipe to import, you're going to be going through this. If we don't have an importer already made for, you're going to be doing this route. Okay, so now we have our 555 new recipes. So I'll close all these import windows, and we'll click on one of them, and there we have it, imported. Now I'll export my recipes in Insight Live to Insight. To do that, I'll click Export. So right now, Insight is compiling all of the data, and it's putting it into a file named insightdata.db, which is an SQLite database file. And because I'm using Chrome, it automatically downloaded it into my Documents download folder. So let's go and have a look at that. There's the file. I could open this file using my SQLite editor as I did before. And if I had uploaded my Insight data here to Insight Live and imported a bunch of recipes, then I can put this file back into my Documents Insight folder, and Insight will see all the new recipes. Obviously, you should keep a backup there of the original Insight data.db file. So in addition to exporting the data, I have also backed up all of my data.